Like a lot of people, I started wargaming, nudging orcs across a kitchen table and making pew pew sounds with my Space Marines bolt guns. The contents of each two-player starter set had a huge impact on the games that my friends and I would play for years to come, and it stayed that way for a long time. However, the wargaming industry has changed quite a bit since I started, and I'm starting to wonder just how important Games Workshop is to the wargaming hobby right now. I want to make it clear from the start that this isn't going to be a video tearing into GW. Nobody needs another video like that. I may not play any of their games anymore, but I have absolutely no beef with anybody who does. What I do want to consider is the extent to which other wargaming companies have caught up to the colossus of the wargaming industry and how much things might continue to change in the next few years. I haven't bought a two-player starter set from Games Workshop in about 5 years. It was the Battle of Pelennor Fields. In the last year alone, I've picked up Armoured Clash, Kings of War Champions, Halo Flashpoint, Operation Artemis, Drop Fleet Commander, and Guards of Traitor's Toll. Now, I'm not trying to show off, and for the love of God, don't tell my wife. But the point I'm making is that two-player starter sets, once the province of GW, the thing that made them so special, well, they're now everywhere. Every company that's big enough to put one together has an aggressively priced starter set because they understand that this is the best way to get someone, or ideally someone and a friend, to start playing their game. What once was a unique way for Games Workshop to draw people into the Warhammer sphere and potentially keep them there through multiple cycles of the game simply isn't there anymore. Two-player starter sets are not the unique pull that they used to be. In fact, I'd say that they're sort of a prerequisite for any company that now wants to make a splash in the wargaming hobby. The quality of plastic minis produced by smaller companies has, in my opinion, increased in leaps and bounds in recent years. All of the starter sets that I just mentioned feature absolutely stunning models. And that's without mentioning Wargames Atlantic, Perry Miniatures, Archon Studios, Atomic Mass Games. The list just goes on and on. You can certainly still argue that Games Workshop produces the best quality plastic minis. They certainly are very impressive as feats of engineering. But I think that increasingly it comes down to a matter of personal taste. Certainly the other companies in the field are now giving them a real run for their money and are only going to get better. If I'm honest, I now feel that other wargaming companies have produced a host of rule sets that are superior to either Warhammer 40k or Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Ironically, many of these rule sets were designed by former Games Workshop employees, which torpedoes any suggestion that they don't hire or produce excellent rules designers. So what's the problem? I wonder if GW is stuck in the past. I know that at least as far back as 6th edition 40k, the designers of the game wanted to shake things up. But something, perhaps a fear of upsetting the existing player base, put the kibosh on that. GW has persisted with a stat line for its models that hasn't really changed in quite a long time, leading to a system that feels clunky compared with the smooth and easy systems of modern games. There's also the fact that players are asked to buy codexes to use the models that they've already paid for. I realise that it must make GW buckets of money, but it just seems like an increasingly old-fashioned way to parcel out the rules to players when so many other companies include stat cards or things for free on their website. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Hang on, I thought this wasn't a video laying into GW. And it's not. But I can't ignore these things when I'm considering GW's place in the current wargaming market, when it's clear that other companies have done such a good job in catching up with them, or in places perhaps superseding their business practices. Having said all of this, Games Workshop still has a number of really significant advantages and things which suggest their ongoing importance to the wargaming hobby. Their brand recognition is, by industry standards, enormous. If you were to stop a random Joe or Josephine in the street, then the one war game that they are most likely to have heard of is Warhammer. They won't know Karl Franz from Konrad Kurz, but they will likely know that Warhammer means toy soldiers and dice. That means that if you're a parent, an auntie, an uncle, or that kind of thing, and you're going to pick up a present for someone that you think will be into this kind of game, then you're probably going to buy some Warhammer, particularly because GW produces starter sets of different shapes and sizes, something that most other companies still don't do. GW also has a presence on lots of high streets, certainly in the UK. And whilst there are some great online retailers who offer fantastic discounts, for that first step into the wargaming hobby, you can't beat a bit of face-to-face time. The opportunity to see the models that have been built and painted, perhaps look at a game being played and talk to someone to get some advice from them on what's involved in the hobby and why it might appeal to you. That just can't be matched by anything other than going into a shop and talking to someone. And whilst there are fantastic friendly local gaming stores, it's not their job to champion any single wargaming company in the way that a Games Workshop store is going to promote Warhammer products. They really do have a huge edge in that department. There's also the fact that Games Workshop still produces some stunning looking models. I will be the first to say that they are not always gamer friendly. How on earth you transport some of these things is completely beyond me. But for sheer stunning, take your breath away, more is more aesthetics, they really are right up there with anything on the market. We also can't dispute that Warhammer, particularly Warhammer 40k, has a massive player base. I think it's really hard to measure these things accurately, but we can see that the tournaments for 40k are always really well attended. And when sales data is released, it seems to indicate that Warhammer 40k sells the most product. If you're looking to get into a game and you want to make sure that there are lots of people that you can play it with, 40k seems to be a bit of a no-brainer in that department. Finally, I want to mention the diversification of the Warhammer IP, something that's happened for years now but is accelerating. There's been a lot of books sold by Black Library, computer games have done very well for years, you've got Magic the Gathering doing Warhammer themed cards. That's all going to make lots of money and increase the familiarity that the public has with the IP. But the really big one is Amazon making a Warhammer 40k TV show starring Henry Cavill. I think that's going to take the IP to a whole new level. People who've no interest in wargaming are suddenly going to know what Warhammer is. I do also think that we could end up with a situation a bit like Marvel, where their comics industry is almost secondary to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You could have Games Workshop making more money, increasing their brand identity more prolifically through these other media than through their toy soldier sales, which will really shake up the industry. I don't necessarily think that's going to be a bad thing, though, because inevitably people who perhaps come to Warhammer through TV or whatever it might be might then take an interest in the hobby. So I can see that as another way in which Warhammer is sort of waving the flag for the wargaming industry and potentially bringing people into this fantastic hobby of ours. I've really tried to present a balanced view in this video, explaining why I don't personally play Games Workshop products at the moment, but also acknowledging their undeniable contribution to the wargaming hobby. I'm really interested to know what you guys think. Are GW pivotal to the hobby or not? Did you get into wargaming like me by playing their games and then move on to something else? Or perhaps you got into it a completely different way through Airfix Toy Soldiers or something like that. Or maybe you're a dyed-in-the-wool Games Workshop aficionado and you really think they don't deserve all the criticism that they get. Please let me know in the comments. I hope that you've enjoyed the video. If so, please consider giving it a like or subscribe. I hope to see you again soon. And until then, keep rolling.